who've subscribed to this channel, and of course I hope that more people will see these videos and subscribe in the future. And one of the things I'm trying to do is compile a list of ideas, things I've thought about over the years, into a book. And it's been hard to write it down or type it out because I've been quite busy. I also became ill earlier in 2021 this year, and it has been hard to focus and do it. But I've always thought about it, and I've written notes over the years, but I just haven't put it down on paper. And I kind of wanted to do it in a kind of philosophical way, but with a modern twist. And when I say philosophical, I'm talking about, if you've read or if you're interested or familiar with different philosophers, through in the West and in the East, and how they present their ideas, sort of in that way. And today I wanted to talk about the word adornment. Adornment, which means accessorizing yourself with something. It could be clothing, it could be jewelry, or things that accessorize your body. And I think adornment is one of these things that are very, it's a very human concept, it's a very human practice to adorn oneself with objects of beauty, for example. And for me, I've always been interested in culture, even when I was a young child. And I used to just comb through encyclopedias from a very early age, just reading nonstop. I mean, I read the encyclopedia. I used to read World Book encyclopedias because we had those in my grandmother's house. Man, actually later I had my own set. So I read actually 2 volumes of it. I read the version from the 1960s, and then I read the version from the 1980s. And when I say read, I mean I read the entire set of encyclopedias, practically from beginning to end, A to Z. And I spent a lot of time in the dictionary as well. And I found out a lot of things about the world through those encyclopedias. And one thing I found out is about culture. And then over the years, I became interested in indigenous culture and in the different forms you see around the world. And when I say indigenous culture, I'm talking about the whole world, because in the sense when we think about indigenous today, we're thinking about isolated people or people who seem to hold on to the traditional values and ways, where really what we're looking at is the way we all were until certain cultural norms were adopted by everyone. And sometimes these norms were European, sometimes these norms were Asian. There was a time where the European norm that was adopted, much of it came out of Rome. And the Asian norm that was adopted by many nations and indigenous people came from, in the East, came from China. So you see, that's why you see around Asia the influence of China and culture, throughout all of Asia, and you see, which really is the influence of Rome throughout Europe. We're talking about laws, kind of etiquette, um, and dress, for that matter, adornment as well. So, indigenous really, in a sense, is a misnomer, because we all were that way. Our ancestors were all living an indigenous lifestyle at one point. But now it's sort of divided into what we call indigenous and what we would call a modern way of life or modern culture. So in adornment, for me, I look at my personal adornment. So I personally like jewelry. I'm not wearing any jewelry right now, but I think jewelry is one of the most, you could say, visible aspects of adornment. And it's important. It's important for people to express themselves. I mean, jewelry has always been used in humanity as a way to show your status, your position in your own culture, and it's still really used that way. It's just it's the same as the decisions you make when you choose the clothing you buy. You buy clothing that matches your worldview, really, who you see yourself as in the world. You dress like punk rocker because you identify with that. You dress like you wear extremely casual clothes, or maybe what they call hip-hop style of dress, because you identify with that. So it could be whatever it is. Every piece of clothing tends to focus on what you identify with, and jewelry is the same way. Now, the way jewelry is worn has changed, but my personal opinion is that it still should reflect the way it was in ancient times, which is your opinion of yourself and your position, how you see your position in the world. I personally like bracelets, necklaces, and earrings. I think that's pretty much everything, but pendants. Those are the main kind of things I'm interested in. I don't wear it so much. I don't wear them. I like to look at them, and I like to look at different designs, and I like to look at the history of the designs, and modern things, old things. When I go to a museum, I often look at the jewelry, and I buy quite a few pieces. I don't necessarily wear them, but I buy them here and there when I find something I like. I particularly like African jewelry. I particularly like Native American jewelry. But really, from any culture, if I think the design is interesting for me. Now, talking about earrings, I think it's interesting because when I was growing up, for a man to wear an earring or earrings was a bit controversial. I mean, at one point it was considered somehow connected to sexuality, which was obviously complete nonsense, but that was a kind of a stereotype. And they even used to say, if a man wore an earring in a particular ear, then that means that he has this certain sexuality. Complete nonsense, but that's how people thought at that time. And I used to, I got my first piercing I pierced my ear myself when I was, I think I'm probably about 13 years old. It's just something I wanted to do because some people in my, people I looked up to in my neighborhood, I think, had an earring, and I wanted one, and I did it myself, and I still have the hole. And I wore one earring for many years, and when I got to high school, I decided to wear earrings in both ears. Now that was really, and we're talking about 30, say when I was about 16, so we're talking about 33 years ago, and during that time, so you're talking about the mid to late 80s, and during that time it was completely unheard of. And I think I got onto the idea because I liked the band called The Church, and the Church, I guess the lead guitar or the rhythm guitarist, I'm not sure, he had both earrings pierced. He wore earrings in both ears, and I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to do it, and I did it. And I swear, I mean, coming up where I lived in Baltimore, I was ridiculed, I mean, just left and right. I mean, maybe it was a kind of ear. I used to wear these big hoops, golden hoops, and maybe it was the kind of earring I was wearing, I don't know. But I was ridiculed left and right. I was called all kinds of negative things. It even forced me to not wear them in certain situations, you know. And but I still, even today, I have my ears pierced on both sides, and several holes on the left side of my left ear. But you know, I was subjected to peer pressure from society not to wear earring in each ear. And this is the mid to late 80s, and actually for a while I stopped really wearing earrings. I might wear one in one ear once in a while. And actually, I think I used to wear a few earrings in my left ear for a while too, through college. But I didn't really wear the two earrings so much, and once in a while. And I thought it was interesting. When I graduated from university, I left Baltimore, I moved to New York City. And when I was after a couple of years, I mean, I used to wear like one earring in New York City. But I remember a couple of years, after being there a couple of years, I noticed that, so now we're talking about 1994, 1995, 1996, that time. Now, in those years, men wearing an earring in both ears became trendy, popular. And I noticed it. I noticed, and I was in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, and I saw middle-aged guys, I mean, guys who were like 10 years older than me, with a diamond in each ear, and, you know, guys who were working class guys, you know, and it was clear that was becoming a style in New York City. And you saw it, you know, in the jobs I worked in, people I knew, neighbors. I saw it more often. And then, you know, a few years later, you started to see it become widespread in the music industry. You saw bands like In Sync, when everybody had earrings in both ears. So then it became, from that point on, it became mainstream. And I thought, how interesting that it became, that wearing an earring in each ear for a man became so mainstream by the mid-90s to late 90s. I was taken aback by it. But by this time, of course, I'm in my mid-20s, and I moved to Japan from New York City. I moved to Okayama City, and of course, you hardly saw a man with an earring in his ear here, but over after a few years of being here, that trend took hold here, and you start to see it more. And working in as a professional person, looking a certain way, I was reluctant to wear earrings, even though I wanted to. And then time went by, and it's interesting. Like when I got to my 40s, I decided, you know what, and maybe I was influenced by Morgan Freeman or something. I said, you know what, I'm gonna start wearing an earring in each ear again, even in my 40s, and I started doing it, and I even started to build up a collection of studs, and mostly studs of different sizes, and most of them are black in color. I decided to go with a black motif, either onyx or something like a black diamond look kind of thing, and that's mostly what I have, and mostly what I wear, or some type of surgical steel or something that's black. That's mostly what I wear. But I think I was influenced by Morgan Freeman, of all people, because he is an older gentleman. He wears his earrings in both ears, and I didn't need to justify it, but I decided to think about it a bit more, and I noticed that culturally, this was a part of human culture, for men and women, for millennia upon millennia. If you look at historical records, if you look at what we consider indigenous or tribal cultures today, it's a very common thing. And why should it be abandoned? It's because we choose to live in a conformist kind of culture, either the Asian version of it, which is what I live in, or the Western version, which is what I grew up in. So, adornment is, it's important for the main reason is that when you are interested in something, be it clothing, fashion, jewelry, whatever it may be that you feel that adorns you well, it makes you happy when you can use adornment to express yourself, to beautify yourself. There's other ways people express adornment. It could be people do different types of body piercing, tattooing, and I think these decisions that people make should be recognized and accepted, the way we recognize and accept different lifestyles, and different modes of living, you could say, as we move forward, right? As we move forward in society, or as a society. So, okay, that's really all I want to say about adornment and my personal story. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and please subscribe and like the video. Thank you.